chime of the bell beckons us into a sacred time. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, a congregation that welcomes you no matter what you look like or who you love, and no matter how you practice spirituality, because we know we need not think alike to love alike. We extend a heartfelt and inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship and in service to the world. We greet all those who join us this morning, those in our sanctuary, all of our many online viewers, así como el creciente número de participantes bilingües que nos acompañan desde sus hogares. Now, please turn in your teal hymnals to number 1014. 1014. Then rise in body or in spirit and join the choir and I as we sing the hymn, Answering the Call of Love. You can see the words actually in your, it's an insert inside of your order of service. So it might be better to look at the words in the order.
We are answering the call of love. Let the words of our opening hymn inspire us to recall the mission of our faith, to build a more loving world where each and every person has their worth and dignity celebrated. Youth, elder, migrant, citizen, black, white, Asian, multiracial, indigenous, transgender, male, female, gay, straight, or somewhere in between. Each has a place in the great family of all souls. We are answering the call of love. We do so as a community. So come, friends, let us worship together.
Celebremos con
Please join with me in reading the Congregational Covenant that is printed on the back of your order of service. Love is the spirit of our congregation. Service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to encourage one another. Thus do we covenant.
Hi, I'm Peggy Harvey, one of this year's co-chairs for the Stewardship Campaign. Our theme this year is Widening the Circle of Love. FIRSTUU Church has a solid foundation on which to build this endeavor. We were the first safe place in Houston for LGBT teens to talk about their sexuality. We've been active in support of immigrants, the struggle against racism, voter registration, and women's health issues. We helped to found the Houston Zen Center. We were in the forefront of the desegregation of churches in the Houston area, and we're host to one of Houston's longest-running women's groups. On a personal note, FIRSTUU has supported and educated me as I've grown into a more involved person working for change. I've taken part in some of the many social justice activities offered here. I was welcomed decades ago as a single parent who wanted to bring her children up in a warm, loving environment that was socially and politically active. I hope you'll join us in renewing your commitment to this beloved community, which is essential to us, to Houston, and beyond. Please help us widen the circle of love. Thank you.
Listen to
So now is the time when our young people go off to their religious exploration. And today I understand that they'll be working some in the garden, which I have to say I'm jealous of because I love gardening. And I hope that as you go off to your exploration, you remember that we love you and we're so excited that you're the future of our community. Please join with me in the spirit that some call prayer and others name meditation. Open yourself to the wonders and mysteries of the world. Open yourself to compassion and empathy. Take one breath. Take another. Find your center. Spirit of life, known by many names and beyond all naming, we ask for your presence with us this morning. This first Sunday of spring, this first week of Ramadan, drawing inspiration from many religious traditions, we uplift this time of going deeper and seeking spiritual reward through practices of fasting, charity, recitation, and communal celebration. We ask that in this month and throughout this spring, the Spirit moves through all of the peoples of the world, whether they name Spirit as the Abrahamic God, the Orishas, the highest in humanity, one of the many Hindu deities, or call it by other words. We ask that that Spirit helps us to go deeper and find ourselves in giving greater generosity and developing a stronger sense of community. That it might be so, I invite the congregation to say Amen. We now hold in our hearts that which sits heavy and light upon us, and lift up Norma Acker, who is now at home recovering from rehab and continues to gain strength. We send her our healing prayers. We hold in our hearts friend of the congregation, Amawali Luthuli. He shares that his twin grandchildren were born prematurely last week, and he requests prayers for them, his daughter, and her husband, and reports that the infants are currently thriving without external support. And we celebrate Chelsea D'Souza, who successfully had her doctoral recital this past Thursday. And is now one step closer to earning her degree. We now turn to a practice inspired by African, indigenous, and neo-pagan traditions. We say aloud or bring to mind those who wish to have held in the loving embrace of this community. In this great cloud of witness and memory, amid this beloved community, we hear these names. Let us extend our empathy to all of the suffering and joy which has not been named but is present with us. We enter now into a time of silent prayer or reflection, opening ourselves to the spirit of love, the spirit of hope, and the spirit of compassion.
Each week, our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values and through which we may live out our principles in the world. Today, through our shared offering to the SHAPE Community Center, we are helping to improve the quality of life for our neighbors of African descent through programs and activities. The mission of the center is to, quote, improve the quality of life for people of African descent and all people through programs and activities with an emphasis on unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith, end quote. Those in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in the order of service, and those watching the live stream will see the instructions on your screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to give generously. An offering will now be gratefully received.
Please join with me in the words to dedicate our offering found in your pew card. To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are our offerings.
Our first reading this morning is from Growing Our Souls by Paula Cole-Jones. The prophetic church has many roles. It does the difficult work of truth and reconciliation and sets a new course that calls people to a higher level of discourse and humanity. It casts a vision that illuminates the way like a beam of light and calls us to walk with fellow travelers and together build a new reality. The prophetic church equips us for the journey, fortifies our courage, stokes our passion, rekindles our flame, and supports the community in the process. It reinvents itself and a piece of the world by bringing into being justice and compassion. Public opinion and future generations will recognize it as prophetic.
Our second reading is Love Beyond God by Adam Lawrence Dyer. What if every time you woke, your sigh was felt by every being on earth? What if every time you spoke, your words were heard by every ear on earth? What if when you told a joke, you tickled the senses of every smile on earth? What if with each tender stroke, you shared your touch with every hand on earth? What if when your heart broke, You tasted the tears running down every cheek on earth. No bond or brand or gilded yoke. Surely this love that reaches beyond, that holds one to another and everyone to one, no matter the color or where they came from. This is now. This is we. This is love. This is God. This is love beyond God. Here ends the second reading.
Now I invite you to open your gray hymnals to number 20. Please rise in body or in spirit and join together as we sing.
Last Sunday, the kids in our religious education program got to harvest some of the vegetables that they've been growing in our garden plot. You've probably seen it. It's on Fannin, right as you walk in the main entrance to the campus. This time of year, it's a burst of verdant green full of good things to eat. And they got to take home kale, mustard greens, carrots, and beets. There's still stuff out there, too. Even though the bolted cilantro is not the best tasting, I admit that I've been admiring it. There's something about the way the herbs grow in a spidery mass that has a particular appeal to me. And I have to talk about the smash of color. There are black-eyed Susans with lovely shocks of yellow. And of course, I'm obliged to mention the bluebonnets, that beloved Texas flower that has escaped the bonds of the garden, jumped the sidewalk, and made their way to the other side of the concrete. And today the kids are going to be at it again. They're in the first phase of transitioning the garden from winter to spring. They're going to be planting cosmos flowers, which will add some nice pink, and zinnias, that'll be a bit of red. There'll be green beans too, which I have to admit I may sneak out during my lunch break from time to time and nibble on a little bit. Our congregation is not unique. Churches and other religious communities have long had gardens. Indeed, gardens have been connected with religion probably as long as there has been organized religion as such. Let us begin with the garden, an image of paradise. Unitarian Universalist theologian Rebecca Parker encourages us in her reflections on the foundations of our tradition. And more than 125 years ago, here in Houston, our religious ancestors did just that. It is, as I shared with you in a recent sermon, the first recorded Universalist sermon given in the city asked, "What are we to live for but to make this world a paradise, a pleasant, happy place for all?" Paradise has often been likened to a garden. The earliest Christian communities found in this world permeated and blessed by the Spirit of God. Those are Rebecca Parker's words, writing with her friend Rita Nakashima Brock. Permeated and blessed by the Spirit seems to me a good way to describe many gardens. Certainly our garden out front and our courtyard garden are both blessed by the Spirit of this community. In each of them there's something of the presence, the care, the dedication of both those who are now living and those who have gone before. Gardening seems like a good metaphor in which to root our annual stewardship sermon. Like stewardship, it is an act of love. Like stewardship, it is, as our children are reminding us, an intergenerational activity. And like stewardship, it is a way we widen love's circle. Stewardship is an opportunity to reflect upon what it means to be a member of a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Gardening is an experiential way of connecting with what it means to be human, to be entirely dependent on, part of, and charged with tending this muddy blue-green ball of a planet that is home to all known being. Gardening, stewardship, each a religious activity coming from that old definition of religion rooted in the Latin word religio, what binds together. For us Unitarian Universalists, stewardship is about building and sustaining the prophetic religious community. Paula Cole-Jones describes it for us in her work where she mentions some of the dimensions of such a community. She tells us that it casts a vision that illuminates the way and equips us for the journey, fortifies our courage, strokes our passions, and rekindles our flame. I like to quote John Wolfe, the longtime minister of All Souls in Tulsa, about stewardship. An advocate of the prophetic religious community, he built the largest Unitarian Universalist congregation in the world. He wrote, "There is only one reason for joining a Unitarian Universalist congregation. That is to support it with your time and money. You want to support it because it stands against superstition and fear, because it points to what is noblest and best in human life, because it is open to people of whatever race, creed, color, place of origin, gender, or sexual orientation." Those words are several decades old, and they were true back when he composed them, and they remain true today. Though, in this dire hour when the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is telling us that we must act now before it is too late, we are obliged to add that our tradition is calling us to heal our interdependent relationship with the earth. And so this morning it seems pertinent to choose gardening as a metaphor for stewardship. I like it because, well, gardening is something that almost everyone enjoys. I have yet to meet the person, actually, who, even if they don't like getting their hands dirty and their pants muddy, does not appreciate either a beautiful garden or the bounty of fresh vegetables, the glory of cultivated flowers. And to be human is to enjoy, and here I mean enjoy in the sense of benefit from, stewardship. If we are alive, and I hope that all of us are, we would do well to remember that each of us is a gift from our ancestors who brought us into being. And that each of us is enjoying their gifts from all the time, the gifts of the culture they crafted, the gifts of the buildings they built, and yes, the gifts of the religious communities that they created. I will admit that it is also just possible that I am eager to use gardening as a metaphor because, well, at the moment I'm a little bit garden mad. You see, a few weeks ago I got access to a community garden plot for the first time in a couple of years. And so I've been doing all of the things. Consulting with family members about what I should grow, asking my mom for her expertise, thinking about the best strategies to organically keep the weeds down and the bugs out, worrying about the tomato seedlings, watching the corn start to sprout, getting excited about radish shoots, even beginning to wonder if I could turn the whole thing into one of these no-till ventures and make use of the gobs of compost we always seem to be producing. Like I said, a bit garden mad. So let's dig a bit deeper into gardening as a metaphor for stewardship and consider how both are connected to widening love's circle. Now, I'm not by any stretch a master gardener. I do know enough about gardening, though, to know that there are certain steps that are involved in the process. The first thing, of course, is that you have to figure out what it is you want to grow, what kind of garden you wish to have. I've decided on a vegetable garden. Flowers are nice, but there's just something about having tomatoes straight off of the vine. And let's not forget about fresh basil and homemade pesto. When forming a religious community, people also have to select its purpose. And I've been arguing for the last months that the purpose of this congregation, the vision that we voted on a few weeks ago, has been the vision for a long time. The idea of invoking the Universalist tradition to widen love's circle. We find that intention in Quillen Shin's words from the earliest of our sermons when he called us to build the world that was a happy place for all. Once you've settled upon the purpose of your garden, you have to select your spot. I was lucky that there were a few plots to choose from in the form of the community garden, so I got to pick one with lots of sun and that was near a good water spout and not so far from the community tool shed. Very convenient. The same thing is true with congregational life. We have to select a site where we think our vision will be best nurtured. And here we have committed, in the words of our recently adopted mission, to the city's diverse urban center. We've decided that we can be best stewards of our vision of widening love's circle by making a place for Unitarian Universalism and Unitarian Universalists in the center of Houston. After we have a site, we have to make a plan. You can see the wonderful intentional plan that's been made by the religious education program for our front garden. They've been thoughtful about what goes where and when what gets planted. Some of the time, they even have labels out for you to see. If you have a garden, have you had a particular approach to planting it? In my case, I like to draw a grid. And then with the benefit of my mother's wisdom, think about where the tomatoes are supposed to go, the succession planning for the salad greens, locations for some herbs, the placements of marigolds to keep pests out, and when the peppers and other seed starts are supposed to go in. Gardens do a lot better when there's a sense of intentionality behind them. If you crowd the plants, they're not going to grow too well. Space is limited. Some things grow more quickly than others. Right now, there are a lot of radishes where in a month or so, the tomatoes will be vining. Religious communities also do better with a plan. We only have so much focus. One of the reasons why First Unitarian Universalist has done so well in the last couple of years has been because we've been intentional about sticking to our developmental goals. Rather than trying to do everything all at once, we've made a decision to tend to the issues that are most vital to our religious community. Developing a clearer sense of vision and mission, improving governance, making a commitment to anti-racism and to membership growth. To be good stewards of our institution, like being good gardeners, is partially about knowing how much can be accomplished and when it can be accomplished. When it's time to focus on this thing or those plants, and when other things need to be tended to. So much of the work over the last few years has been organizationally focused. In gardening terms, we've been spacing out the tomato cages, laying the trellises, tilling the soil, and now it's time to turn from that work to really starting to grow things again. And so in the coming year, we will be focusing more on deepening spiritual practice and connection than we have been as we've been going through this transition period. With a plan in place, first comes the work of planting, and then the slow, steady work of stewarding the garden. This is some of the work I enjoy the most. And if you garden, is it not the same for you? The visiting of the plot almost daily to watch the earthly miracle as it unfolds. Give it some water, pull out the odd weed, and the greenery steadily expands. A few minutes each day doing so is a great way to keep me centered. It is also a thing that the folks who live in my household and family keeps them connected with each other as we share it. We talk about the garden, tend to the seed starts, and engage in a little bit of collective and cooperative work. Stewarding a garden is really a spiritual practice. It keeps us linked to the natural cycles of the planet, aware of what is happening with the climate, and conscious of the ways we are dependent upon and interdependent on the wind, the sun, the earth, the rain, the all that is. If you are a gardener or have ever benefited from a garden, and this is something we try to teach the children through our religious education program, you probably learned that the more that you put into stewardship, the more you get out of it. This, of course, is the stewardship kicker of the sermon, the part that I've been leading to, where I hope to inspire you, as Bob Scheibele, former longtime minister, used to say, to give until it feels good. I found that over the years, the more people give to their religious community, the more they get out of it, and the more fully the community is able to live into its vision. Here, though I am talking about the always uncomfortable subject of financial giving, I'm also discussing the sharing of time and talent. It is your gifts of all three that empower the collective us to work together to widen love's circle. And the more devoted we are to stewardship, the more we can give, the more we can expand that circle. There is so much for us to do for each other and for the wider community. We proclaim a message that each and every human being has inherent worth and dignity in a state that is governed by the politics of cruelty. In a place where the evil of the ruling political class, for it is evil to inflict intentionally suffering on others, is so often targeted at women, people of color, the undocumented, and those who are queer and gender fluid. It is a region where what seems like basic decencies in other parts of the country, access to abortion, gender-neutral bathrooms, gender-affirming care, maternal health care, and so many things, are anthems to people who pretend to speak with words inspired by the Spirit of God. In such a place, this state of Texas, committing to steward the vision of widening the love circle is a radical and rewarding act. It is radical because it challenges us to uproot the politics of cruelty and replace them with love. It is rewarding because it calls each of us into the work of community and the challenge of caring for each other and all being. It reminds us of the fundamental truth of life, spoken so eloquently in the poem by Adam Lawrence Dyer. It is love that reaches beyond, that holds one to another and every other to one, no matter the color or where they were from. This is now, this is we, this is love. This is love beyond God. Love beyond God. This morning we launch our annual stewardship campaign, and we are encouraging those of you who are members to renew your pledges. And we're encouraging those of you who are not yet members to consider making a financial commitment to support the vision of this community. It takes a little over $1 million a year to do all that we do. And we can only do it with the dedicated stewardship of so many of you. Let me not leave the sermon there. Instead, let us return to the garden. For it reminds us that when we are good and generous stewards, we find rewards of beauty and sustenance, not just for our own generations, but for future ones. That, after all, is how we hope to inspire our children through our garden out front. The lesson that there is beauty and sustenance to be found through widening love's circle. And it is what we hope to inspire each other through our collective stewardship. That it might be so, I invite the congregation to say Amen.
Now I invite you to open your teal hymnals to number 1028, The Fire of Commitment. Please rise in body or in spirit and join together as we sing one of my favorites.
Passion
As we extinguish the chalice, please join with me in reading the words that are printed on the laminated cards in the backs of the pews. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Let us leave this place inspired by the fire of commitment to be ever better stewards to what has been given to us. The good earth, the sweet water, the great family of all souls, and this religious community. Go in peace, go in love. May our lives be a blessing. Amen. Thank you so much for watching our service today. We're glad you're part of our online community, where we welcome people who are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, as well as gender identity and sexual orientation. There are many different ways you can get involved in our community. One you can do right now is by clicking like below or subscribing to our channel. If you're interested in joining our congregation, please email us at membership@firstuuhouston.org. Thanks so much for joining us.